So our top story this morning, tens of thousands of teachers in England are going to walk out today after members of the National Education Union, the NEU, rejected the government's pay offer. They've called it insulting.
All major teaching unions have now rejected the 4.3% wage rise, warning the disruption will get worse unless a deal's reached.
Now, this follows the closure of most schools in Northern Ireland yesterday, but in Scotland, teachers have suspended strike action, with the union urging its members to accept their government's offer of a 12% pay increase.
Well, joining us this morning is the political reporter at the Daily Express, Millie Cooke. Good morning to you, Millie.
Good morning.
Look, the timing of this is particularly poignant, I think, in terms of the pupils, because we're heading into exam season. A number of A-levels have had to be rescheduled today, and front and centre of all of this, of course, is the welfare of the kids. I mean, you might have an industrial right to strike, but children are being kept at home again.
No, absolutely, and it is. We are likely to see huge amounts of disruption across the UK today for both pupils and parents. And heading into exam season, it's really not good for pupils, and I can't even imagine the anxiety they must be facing leading up to really important exams. But it has to be said that, speaking to a lot of teachers this week, they do have the pupils' best interests at heart, and they really just want to provide services for pupils. But obviously, if you're a student, it must be hard to see that your education is at risk when you're facing such important exams.
So how does this all get solved? Because we know that the unions have been urging the Education Secretary to come back and negotiate, and she's refused unless they call off the strikes, which they are also refusing. So we're in this kind of situation where it's a standoff. And now it's got to the point where the government's actually rescinded the bonus that it was offering.
Yeah, so currently teachers are demanding an above-inflation rise. So with inflation at 10% at the moment, it is a steep order. But their main...
Did it in Scotland?
It's true, but their main concern is currently they want a funded pay rise. So teachers kind of across the UK are really demanding a pay rise that doesn't just come out of students' budgets. So they're kind of... That's when I say that they've got the students' best interests at heart, because they're really concerned about students losing out on funding and making both the lives of students and teachers harder if they take it straight out of the education budget. So they're kind of looking for a clean 10% that comes from elsewhere.
You know, is it just me? But, you know, folks, as you wake up today, do you think, has the world ever been worse? I mean, outside world wars and whatever, but everything seems to be falling apart. Everybody is malcontent about everything. And when this infiltrates into schools, you know, when you're at your most impressionable or whatever, it just doesn't augur well for the rest of society, does it?
No, absolutely doesn't. I think at the moment the government is facing a number of headaches. So obviously overnight we've seen things like the migration bill break, we've seen school strikes, nursing strikes. It just feels like there is discontent across so many issues that are important to Rishi Sunak's agenda.
Well, can we talk about the nursing strike? Important to point out, I think, midwives have accepted an NHS pay offer in the last 24 hours. But meanwhile, the Health Secretary is taking the nurses to court because he's saying they've been left with no choice. It's a technicality, but he feels he has to put his foot down. What's the latest on that?
But he loves acting the hard man bit. He loves flexing his muscles and I'll tell you who's in charge. He's not in charge, really. At the end of the day, I believe the unions will win. At the end of the day, they will get some sort of, not compromise, more than a compromise, some sort of demand that they want. So why are we just messing about? Let's just settle.
I mean, at the moment, it really does sum up exactly how far negotiations and relations between the government and the unions have deteriorated. Because currently, Steve Barclay is taking them to court over a technicality. So he's arguing that their mandate for strikes has expired, because I think they balloted members that expired. They balloted, the ballot closed at midday in November on, I think it was November 2nd. Yeah. And now he's saying their strike action needs to end at midday or kind of the night before on May 2nd. And he's fighting them over kind of a 24-hour window, which isn't based on kind of looking at whether or not strike action overall is legal. It's very much a timing issue, which feels kind of like a nitty-gritty back and forth.
It's point scoring, isn't it? But it speaks, I suppose, to the frustration, because they had a deal with the nurses, and in fact Pat Cullen and other members of nursing unions recommended it to their members, and it was the members that rejected it. So they had all this progress. They were quoting the deal with the RCN to all the other unions, saying, look what progress we've done here, and it's all fallen apart. So you can see that he's incredibly frustrated. At the same time, front of the Guardian this morning, now criticisms that Steve Barclay is bullying members of the civil service.
It really is a headache for the government this week. It's just not looking good for... I mean, across several departments, they're really struggling, but I feel like these reports, especially for Steve Barclay, it's especially difficult in the wake of the Tolley report into Dominic Raab. So the fact that one minister has already resigned just in the last week, it really isn't looking good, and it really shows that there is tensions kind of across departments, whether it's between unions and the government or civil servants and their ministers. But it really is a stressful time, I think.
Although it is interesting, I mean, there are always rumours about Dominic Raab, but I've never heard anything. Well, you say he likes to sort of flex his muscles, Eamon, Steve Barclay, but no.
Oh, Steve Barclay, yes.
Yeah, I'm just saying it's come a little bit out.
Well, I do think Steve
blue.
Barclay's got a persona of, don't mess with me type attitude.
Maybe. Well, yeah, I mean, look, there'll obviously have to be investigations into that and exactly what these informal complaints are. But it seems very easy to make that accusation now, that the bullying accusation. It's very sort of...
I think you can make bullying accusations against anyone, really. If you look at someone the wrong way, it's bullying as well. So I think it's going to be around, and it's going to be very much a thing between the civil service and government ministers from here on in. Millie, thanks for the moment anyway. Thank you very much. Good talking to you.